All right, hey folks, this is Andrew Cummings here with another Missionary Max moment. For those of you who are tuning in for the first time, this is a little video broadcast that I do where I talk about different aspects of the Missionary Max series, which I wrote. Actually, the first book just came out in paperwork, lots of that. The first book just came out in paperback, Missionary Max and the Jungle Princess. And so I just get on the camera here every once in a while and we talk about different things about the book. What I want to talk about today is the setting for the Missionary Max series. Now, if you've read it, you know that it is set on an island, a fictitious island, in case anyone has actually gone to the to the um, to the map to look at it. But it's set on the island called Cabrito. And if you read the book, you know Cabrito means for little, like in Portuguese for little goat. I want to talk to you a little bit about how I came up with the idea and what went into the making of this imaginary, this fictitious island that the Missionary Max adventure takes place on. Uh, as many of you, perhaps all of you know, I'm a missionary in Brazil, and so naturally, my first thought was to set the story in Brazil. However, as the story progressed, I began to realize that I wanted Max to interact in what could be called a banana republic, and an underdeveloped um, country with a totally corrupt government that was more common in Latin America a few decades ago. You still see it in some places. Venezuela comes to mind. I actually thought about putting it in Venezuela, but I don't know Spanish. I know Portuguese, not Spanish, and so I wanted to deal with something I was familiar with, and I'm not that familiar with Venezuela and the government systems and all that. So, but I couldn't really set it in Brazil because Brazil's not a banana republic. Brazil's a growing and dynamic country. It's got its share of issues, but it's a far way away from the kind of thing we find in Missionary Max and the kind of place where he can be involved in the adventures that he's actually involved in. So what I finally settled on was, well, I'll just make up something, and so I created this fictitious island called Cabrito, and it is an island in the Atlantic, little known. Not very backwards. They don't have, for example, they don't have cell phone service there. It's either landlines and there's a payphone system that kind of plays an important role in the book. Or some people, your richer people, will have satellite phones, and so they communicate directly with satellites, and so. It kind of gives you an idea, and so I built this, and so there's some aspects of Brazilian culture that I brought over. They speak Portuguese. In the beginning of a book, there's a taxi ride that's almost it's basically like a conglomeration of every taxi ride I've ever had in Brazil. And some other things that are from Brazilian cultures. You read, you might see that, but I also made it a little bit. I tried to meld these things and make the island have a culture of its own. I took a cue from some other islands in the Atlantic that are former Portuguese colonies. For example, the Cape Verde Islands. The Cape Verde Islands are former Portuguese colonies, and they speak Portuguese. And I know people. I have friends who are from the Cape Verde Islands, and Brazilian friends who work in the Cape Verde Islands, and so I was able to kind of pick their brains a little bit. And in Cape Verde, they speak Portuguese. That's the official language, but then they also speak a Creole, or Crioulo, they call it, which is a conglomeration of Portuguese, European Portuguese, and some of the African dialects that have come over. And so I put together a few words in a Cabritan Crioulo, kind of invented them, and throw that in there. So Max, when he goes, if you've read the book, you understand that when he goes, he already speaks Portuguese, and there's an interesting kind of backstory as to how that happened. But then, since most people around him are talking in the Criollo, he has to actually learn that. Then also, the island is inhabited by some indigenous tribes, and so he is also, when he is with those indigenous tribes, sometimes he's flummoxed because he doesn't understand their language either. So it's a mixture of those languages and a mixture of those cultures that I kind of threw in there. Then the capital of the island is a place called Santo Expedito. There's a whole story behind Santo Expedito is a Roman Catholic saint that possibly never existed as an actual person. There's controversy. He's usually pictured as a Roman emperor, and I thought that'd be just a funny name to give to the capital city. There's actually, I discovered later, a few cities in Brazil called Santo Expedito. But he's the patron saint of urgent causes, and I thought that was a great name for a city in an adventure novel. So there's the capital of Santo Expedito, and there are some other aspects of the city, the capital city. The capital city, I actually modeled a lot of it after the historical district of São Luís, which is the city where I live in Brazil. I think down below in the description, I'll put a link maybe to a picture or two of São Luís so that you can see what the historical district looks like. It's really interesting. And actually, I would go when I was finishing up doing the rough draft and so on, and then writing the next book, which is currently in syndication on our website. That address will be down below. But when I was writing that, I would go actually to the historical district of São Luís and write, and so that I could feel like I was in the middle of where some of the action was taking place. And depending on what I was writing, sometimes I would go right on the beach or in other places, but I really like the historical district there. So if you see pictures, if you've ever been to the historical district of São Luís, and you read the descriptions of the city of Santo Expedito, you might notice a few similarities there. I have here. I actually have when I write. Let's see. Yeah, turn it right side up here. Yeah. When I write, I actually work off of this map that I drew while I was writing, and actually in my current writing, I also work off of it. I also have, if you've been reading what we've been posting online, the chapters of the second book, you notice that a good portion of that takes place in another island in the archipelago, and so I also have a little map that I drew of that I use just as reference. Okay, he goes here, 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 here. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to post a link also where you can download it and you can actually see the map, and I've posted. It's not on this because I know where everything is, so I haven't labeled anything. But I've actually labeled on the map that I am posting online, where you'll be able to see where the different things happen. So if you've read the book, you're reading the book, you can actually download this and kind of see what's going on where, some of the more interesting places and where things are happening. Okay, so that's it for today. I just want to talk a little bit about the setting for the book. Stay tuned. We'll have another episode in a couple days or so where we'll talk about some other aspect of the book. Don't forget, if you don't have Missionary Max and the Jungle Princess, you can get it online. Go to Amazon.com and you can get it in paperback or Kindle version, whichever, you kind of pick your poison there. We just had our very first ever book signing, and it was an amazing experience. First one of those I've ever done. Amazing experience, and I'm really grateful to all of you that have purchased the book, and all of you who've given me feedback and said, hey, yeah, we're really enjoying it. We're really enjoying it. And don't forget, I have a rough draft of the cover art for the second book, and if you want to see a pre-release of that, what you do is you take a selfie of you with the first book, tell me where you are, put it on Facebook or whatever, and when I get up to 25 of those, I've got 4 already that have been sent, so that's 19. When I get up to 25 of those, if we get up to 25, then I will show everybody I'll give you a first ever look of what the of the second cover, the next cover for the Missionary, and the title of the book is going to be Missionary Max. I don't even know if I've said this before. I might be just releasing this right up. Missionary Max and the Lost City. Okay? Missionary Max and the Lost City. And the cover, I got to tell you, it's awesome. It's going to be great. So don't miss it. Okay? If you haven't bought it, the book. They're going to have links down below for Amazon. You can check those out. Download the map so that you can accompany while you're reading, and happy reading. As always, we love your feedback. If you have a question about it or whatever, I'd be happy to even take your questions, answer those online, and we will be happy to answer those. All right? Until next time.